Welcome back. Childhood fairy tales often end with the main character falling in love, marrying the person of their dreams, and living happily ever after. In an age in which marital straying and divorce are prevalent, a cynic might ask, is it really possible for two people who love each other to live happily ever after, or does that only happen in fairy tales? Dr. Shabir Ali joins me to offer his advice on how to have a happy marriage. Dr. Shabir Ali, I'm going to ask you that question. Is it possible for people to live together for the rest of their lives in happiness?
Yes, of course, it is possible. And it is said in the Quran that God, in fact, puts that harmony between the married couple. In the 30th chapter of the Quran, the 21st verse, it says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. From his signs, from among his signs, is the fact that he has created for you from your own kind mates, so that you can dwell with each other in tranquility.
So, what advice do you have for Muslims today? Because we live in a time in which marriages fall apart very easily.
Yes, we need to look at our situation and look at the ways in which couples are pulled apart, the many different distractions and engagements that make less and less time available for people to spend time with their spouses. And we need to minimize those issues so that we can actually spend quality time with each other. It's very important. Mm-hmm. Conversation is very important, and doing fun things together is also very important.
Mm-hmm. In part, I think expectations have changed about spouses. In the past, people didn't really expect their spouses to be everything and to do everything with them. But now, with the concept, the idea that we are in love with our spouse and the spouse is a soulmate and best friend, there are so many expectations that we place upon the other person that sometimes it's overwhelming to be able to fulfill all of those expectations. Can you talk a little bit about that, about expectations?
Well, one of the things that the Quran teaches is to live under the principle of mercy. The Quran says in the verse that I quoted earlier, in the continuation of that, وَجَعْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً, and He has placed among you mawadda and rahma. Mawadda means love, and rahma means kindness or mercy. Now, love is a concept that is hard to translate in terms of actual actions. Like, what do you do? Okay, I love this person, so what do I do? Do I buy flowers, or what do I do? But rahma or mercy also includes a situation when you don't feel actual love, but you feel that you can be kind to the other person, and you ought to be kind to the other person. Now, if you practice the principle of kindness, then naturally you will help the other person, and the love will generate out of that. Mm-hmm. People need to be kind to each other, and this will ensure a lasting relationship. So even if for some reason people do not actually love each other, the kindness will prevail. The idea of romantic love is in fact quite recent in the history of humankind. Well,
people
romantic
used to marry
love
for very practical reasons.
Yes, although love has been very ancient, people in past societies often married for very practical reasons. And then the love may come later. And this seems to be the way in which the Quran envisions it. People get married, they may not have known each other very well prior to getting married, but if they practice kindness among themselves, then God will put that love in the hearts of the married couple. Often we see the opposite being done in society, where people have high expectations of what their spouses are going to be like, and then they go through a long period of searching, trying to get to know another person until they're satisfied, yeah, I know this person very well, I can marry this person. And this often comes after a lot of experimentation in terms of dating and living together even before getting married. And still these marriages often end up on the rocks. So there's something more that's missing and needs to be there, and I think the main ingredient has to be that we practice this kindness with each other.
Mm-hmm. Do you think religion can help people to live better?
Absolutely, because if two persons are of the same religion, then naturally they have the same goals, aspirations, and expectations for the life hereafter. They have the same kind of commitment with God, and they're going to participate in many religious activities together. For this reason, I'm often asked, can Muslims marry persons of another faith? And my answer generally is that if you are a devout Muslim, then naturally you want to marry another person who is devout in the same way as well, so that you can do things together, you can attend the same institution of worship together, you can participate in community activities knowing that you're members of the same community. Whereas, of course, if the two persons are of two different religions, then this can be very challenging. If one says, I'm going to the church today, and the other one says, I'm going to the mosque today, then naturally the family is split up. And then if they have children, the children then find it not easy to decide whether to go with mom or whether to go with dad on such an occasion, or do we switch at times, and how to navigate between these various beliefs. So some beliefs enunciated in one place of worship and some other beliefs in another place of worship. So it is very important to look at this as one of the binding factors in a marriage. Somebody put on a bumper sticker, the family that prays together stays together. I think that sounds nice, and it's also true.
Most Muslims look to the Prophet, or should look to the Prophet as the model in terms of all things, but also in terms of marriage. So how did the Prophet live his married life? Do we have examples or advice that we can give from his example?
Yes, it is noted that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, participated in doing the household chores, whereas many Muslim men think themselves macho and think that it's below their dignity to participate in the household chores. But it's mentioned that the Prophet, peace be upon him, mended his own clothes, he stitched his shoes, he helped with the housework in terms of cleaning and so on. One of the issues that drive people apart is criticism, especially when men criticize their wives. And it is noted that the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not criticize members of his family, whether wife or younger ones. He may, of course, offer genuine advice, but it's noted that he never asked anyone, why did you do this or why did you do that? He just gave advice where needed, without the criticism.
And it seems like he was very merciful towards his family members in the way he dealt with some of his wives in particular.
Well, in general, he was merciful not only to his wives and the children and people around him, but also
to
even to the animals. So that mercy and kindness should characterize the Muslim behavior at all levels.
What advice do you have for an individual, or for a couple actually, whose marriage is on the rocks?
Well, my advice is to seek counseling and continue to be faithful to each other. One of the problems we're noticing again and again is that people turn to cheating because they feel that the marriage is not going very well, they're dissatisfied, they're trying to seek satisfaction outside of the marriage. But our religion teaches us to be faithful not only to God but also to the promises and covenants that we make with each other as human beings. You've entered into a marriage bond, maintain that bond and stay faithful to your spouse.
And sometimes people feel that they've fallen out of love with their spouse. What advice would you offer on that?
Well, you still need to practice kindness. In the Quran, in the 4th chapter and the 19th verse, God says if you happen to dislike your spouse, then perhaps you dislike something in which God has placed abundant good. So you should still, as the Quran says, ashiruhunna bil ma'ruf, live with them in kindness. And the 2nd chapter of the Quran, the 187th verse, says they are clothing for you and you are for them. So if the spouses think of each other as we think about our clothing is there to protect us, keep us warm, save us from the elements, harsh environment, and to guard our secrets, then spouses should be like this to each other, close to each other, and protective and maintaining of each other.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
We'll take a break, and when we return, we will answer questions we've received from you, our viewers.